What's going on, everybody? Welcome to, I don't know what the name of the show is because we're not really talking about bets, but I guess we are kind of in a sense. Let's talk some NBA odds, people. I'm joined by Donovan Smoot and Peter Dewey, two of the big NBA guys with BetSided. I am a noted hashtag not an NBA guy, so I'm here to actually learn from you two. So I know there was big news. I guess this injury happened last night. Let's start with Khris Middleton of the Bucks. Did this injury happen last night against the Bulls? I know the Bucks lost to the Bulls. As someone who did not watch NBA last night, what happened?
Yeah, he fell down on a move to the hoop in the second half and came up, basically immediately ruled out for the game. The sprained MCL, they're saying he's out 3 to 4 weeks now. So you really look at it, 3 to 4 weeks probably puts you in the Eastern Conference Finals is the earliest time he'd be able to return. So for Milwaukee, that's a tough spot to be in. Now knotted 1-1 with the Bulls, and the Celtics are the Nets waiting in the second round. So their odds have dropped at win. They've gone from second on the odds list to fourth on the odds list with the injury. So not an ideal spot to be in, especially because Middleton kind of bounced back pretty well from game one in his performance last night. He had 20 points. He was playing well. And then to have him have that injury, not ideal for the Bucks. Puts them in. And Donovan, I'm interested in your thoughts. Like I don't know if they're the favorites in the East anymore.
Okay. I would still have them as the favorites just because they have Giannis, but that's me personally. If you want to put the Celtics as the favorite, I would completely understand that. I think that they are neck and neck at this point, and the fact that the Celtics are up 2-0 rather than being in a 1-1 series definitely give them merit to be the favorite. If you're Milwaukee, you're just trying to hope. You're trying to hope to, one, get the series over with as soon as possible, and two, pray that Brooklyn makes a comeback and extends their series 7 games. Right? You want to have as little amount of games to play without Khris Middleton as possible. And it's really, really unfortunate because this is a team that's kind of had injury problems all season long. They started off the season, a big majority of it, not having Brook Lopez, and you kind of saw the lineup of Middleton and Giannis and a Holiday not be able to mesh until late in the season. So it kind of sucks for them to not have, potentially go 2 rounds without their second leading scorer. So I'm still hopeful as a Bucks better, and as somebody who thinks that the Bucks are going to win the title. I'm still hopeful, but we will see, because this does make me a little bit concerned.
I'll just break down really quick the updated Eastern Conference odds via WinBet here. Celtics are now the favorites at 2-1. Bucks still right behind them, plus 280, but the Heat are there at 3-1. Might be the most disrespected number 1 seed of all time. 76ers at plus 400, and the Brooklyn Nets, despite being down 0-2 to the Celtics, at plus 900. And then you got the Bulls 40-1, Hawks. What's that? Hawks and Raptors 200-1. So Peter, I guess, like, in terms of betting value, do the Bucks now kind of have value because their odds have dropped a little bit, or is there a different team, I assume, amongst the top 5 that you like? If you were to place a bet right now on who's going to win the Eastern Conference after this injury, who'd you go with?
Yeah, so to answer the first part of your question, I do think the Bucks have a little bit of value, but it's also going to depend. Another thing that happened last night that not as big of an injury, but Bobby Portis got hit in the eye in the first quarter.
Oh, Donovan, your boy.
Has an eye abrasion. He did not return to the game. I think it's a big reason why they lost yesterday, because one of the things the Bucks did in game 1 is they kind of just beat up the Bulls down low. Bobby Portis had 10 and 12 in that game. They didn't have him, and they tried to go smaller, and that kind of feeds to what the Bulls are trying to do. They play 4 guards, basically, if you're counting DeMar DeRozan as a guard in their best lineups. So he's going to be a big factor too, because I'd assume he takes on a much bigger scoring role if Khris Middleton doesn't return until the Eastern Conference Finals. So there's a little bit of value on the Bucks because, like Donovan said, they have Giannis Antetokounmpo, who's arguably the best player in the league. But if you had to ask me right now who I'm betting, I think I'm taking the Miami Heat, just because of what the other side of the bracket looks like. Like, Boston is the rightful favorite. They have been unbelievable defensively. Like, there's a reason they're the best defensive team. But the fact that they still have to play the Nets, like, this series isn't over. They won the 2 games at home. The Nets could very well win the 2 games in Brooklyn, and now you're looking at a best of 3. and then you'd have to play the Bucks afterwards. It's not exactly the easiest road, but you look at what Miami's done. They've dominated the Hawks in 2 games. Bam Adebayo has not played good basketball. I think he scored 6 points in both the first 2 games. Like, they haven't even needed to get him going. Duncan Robinson went from hitting 8 threes in game 1 to playing 7 minutes in game 2. Miami is the deepest team in the Eastern Conference. And if Jimmy Butler, saw a stat the other day, Jimmy Butler's shooting over 34% from 3 in the playoffs as a member of the Miami Heat. He's normally about a low 20s, mid 20s 3-point shooter. So if he's going to shoot the ball that well and be respected from there, I mean, he scored 45 points in game 2 because he was doing it all. So Miami I think they just have the easier road. I think they match up very well with Philly. And at this point, depth-wise, we've seen now multiple teams kind of get taken out by injuries. Miami goes 9-10 deep without playing Victor Oladipo. Like, they can go even deeper if they really want to. So I think Miami in the East is probably the bet to make right now.
Before I get to you, Donovan, with a similar question, Ben Heisler chimes in, who unfortunately couldn't join us on the stream today. That is a big reason why I'm here. # not an NBA guy. Ben says, of course, Middleton and Booker would go down. Would pretty much all of us took another Suns Bucks NBA Finals rematch. Booker is the more substantial injury. Suns slightly above average without him. We are going to get to the Suns in a little bit, but just to kind of keep on track, we'll finish talking with the Eastern Conference, and I do want to talk with the Suns after that. So Donovan, I know you did kind of tackle this question earlier, but like, do the Bucks have value now? If you were to pick one team out of kind of these top 5, who do you think has the most value? Celtics 2-1, Bucks plus 280, Heat 3-1, 76ers 4-1, Nets 9-1.
If we're talking about value, I see where Peter's coming from, and so I would say Miami in terms of value. In terms of who I think is still going to make it out, I still think Milwaukee is going to make it out. I think that defensively, Milwaukee is going to be able to do a couple things, especially if Portis is back and they're going to be able to play a certain lineup. I think you're going to see Drew Holiday step up. Look, the Bucks went 7-9 without Middleton this year. But the last 2 games that they lost without Middleton were in the last 2 weeks of the season when Budenholzer sat the entire starting lineup. So they really went about 500 without Khris this year. Giannis was also missing for a very good portion of those games. When Giannis was playing and Middleton wasn't, Giannis was scoring 26 points, getting 12 rebounds. His assists went up to 6 assists per game. He was shooting 49% from the field. Like, we saw an elevated version of Giannis whenever Middleton's out. So I think that even in the playoffs, and even if they end up playing a Boston Celtics, who, as everybody knows, has the best defense in the league right now, you're still going to be able to see Giannis dominate that matchup. So I think that Milwaukee still has a little bit of breathing room, and they would still be my bet to come out of the East.
Let's take a little step back here, because what I think was the even more interesting odds movement was the odds to win the series with the Bulls. Because before game 1, when it was tied 0-0, Bucks were minus 1,200 favorites, massive favorites. Bulls were plus 750. Now the series is 1-1, I believe, correct?
Yes.
1-1, so it's still an even series. I guess Chicago did technically steal home court advantage in a sense, all the way down to only minus 270 for the Bucks, plus 220 for the Bulls, which I think is a massive movement. Can the Bulls pull off the upset now without Khris Middleton? Is it, like, I know obviously not many people are going to want to lay the minus 270 juice, but you could still say there is value there at that price. Peter, I'll start with you. Give me your thoughts on this series with the Bulls specifically.
Yeah, I don't think Chicago can win the series. I would be shocked if it didn't go at least 6 games, though. I think Chicago, I mean, they haven't been in the playoffs in 5-6 years. They're going to have a 2 back-to-back home playoff games in a 1-1 series. I think just the home court is going to be crazy at the United Center. I think they get at least one game. Like, DeMar DeRozan was fantastic last night. We've seen the 2 ends of DeMar DeRozan. We saw 6 for 25 DeMar DeRozan, then we saw, him dominate the game in game 2. So obviously there's going to be some kind of it's going to middle out what he's going to do in this series. But the thing with the Bucks, and the difference with the Bucks and the Bulls, is like, Milwaukee has the advantage of playing inside, and I thought going into the series they were the deeper team. You take out Khris Middleton and Bobby Portis being hurt, and the Bulls probably become the deeper team by default at that point. So the thing that's different is Drew Holiday's going to have to step up in the scoring department. He hasn't really scored the ball at a crazy clip this year. I'd assume he's going to have to become a guy they're going to rely on to get 20 points every single night. And then Giannis is just going to have to do otherworldly Giannis things. But you look at the Bulls, like, they have several options. Nikola Vucevic has been playing really well. And then obviously DeMar and Zach LaVine are a threat to get 25 plus every single night. So the Bulls can match them in a scoring perspective without Middleton in the game. I don't think defensively they match up well enough to win the series, but I would be very surprised if this didn't at least get to 6, maybe 7, just based on the way Chicago's played these first 2 games. They've kind of mucked it up and made the Bucks get out of their comfort zone on the offensive end.
Thoughts, Donovan?
Listen, I still think that Milwaukee shouldn't have any issue with Chicago. Like Peter said, what DeMar is going to do for the rest of the series is going to be somewhere in between scoring 41 points and going 6 of 25, right? What we saw last night was the best version of DeMar DeRozan and also the best version of Alex Caruso, right? And Caruso ended up matching up with Giannis towards the end of the game. He got a very big stop at the end. But Milwaukee, even without Middleton, was able to come back in that game. And so I think if they don't spot Chicago, 16, 17 points, I'm really, really interested to see how the Bucks start game 3. Because if they can come out at the start of game 3 on the road and kind of silence the crowd really, really quickly, and then allow Chicago, because I ultimately think that they are going to make a run, especially at home, allow Chicago to get back in the game. But as long as Milwaukee gets that first punch in game 3, I think they'll be fine. I think as for the series, I'm very, very high on Giannis if nobody can tell. And so I'm banking on him to go and do Giannis things. So I think Milwaukee's going to be just fine.
Now let's switch to the other injury news, which was Devin Booker, I believe. Not quite as big of an injury in terms of timeline. 2 to 3 weeks, I believe, for him to come back is the supposed timeline, which would put him end of next series or start of the Western Conference Finals, depending on how things go. Suns have now been leapfrogged by the Warriors in odds to both win the West and odds to win the NBA championship. Warriors are now the betting favorites, plus 300. Suns right behind them at plus 325. But I got to wonder how much of that is because of the injury, or how much is that just to the fact that Pelicans won game 2, whereas the Warriors are up 2-0 on the Nuggets. Is this Booker injury, is he going to come back soon enough that this is not even a concern for you if you're looking to back the Suns to win the championship?
Go ahead.
Okay, and I'll say this because I'm on the opposite side. I'm not like Peter. I don't have the Suns making it to the finals at all. And so if we quickly go to the Warriors' perspective of it, one, listen, I've been trying to tell you that the Warriors are going to make the finals, and this Devin Booker injury makes it a little bit more possible. 2, they have value at plus 300, even though that they're the favorite. 3, and now coming back to Phoenix, I think that Phoenix's odds. 1, they lost that game because Devin Booker wasn't there. Devin Booker went crazy in the first half of that, had 31 in the first half, was dapping up babies on the sideline, like he was doing everything. And so now that he's not there, it's a little bit rough. You also saw Brandon Ingram and CJ McCollum play to the best of their abilities. The shot making that they showed at the end of that game was unreal. And while they are great players, I don't think that we're going to see that moving forward. Phoenix has shown all year long that no matter who is in or who's out, they can keep chugging along. They had a very long stretch without Chris Paul. They were still winning. They had a point where they were missing both Chris Paul and Devin Booker. They were still winning. I think that Phoenix, especially now that they've been dropped, if you are like Peter, now's the time to jump on them because you get a little bit of the value that left them as soon as the playoffs started.
Peter?
I'm concerned as a Phoenix Suns bettor, and it just if you're the Suns, I would just be concerned because what happened in game 2, it laid out a blueprint for the Pelicans, I think, in this series to make this interesting, and it scares me more if they have to play the Mavs and Luka Doncic in the second round without Devin Booker. And it's the fact that, you look at what the Suns have done this season, why they've been so good. They went 56 and 6 or 56 and 8 without Devin Booker. They're 8 and 6 when he doesn't play. Okay, in the games that he played this season, their offensive rating was 116.8. When he didn't play, it was 109.2. That's a 7.6 points difference per 100 possessions. That's a big gap. And the reason why, you look at the Suns, they're so great because you have Devin Booker getting 27, 28 every single night. That's what he's looking at every night. Chris Paul facilitates the offense, and then you have a ton of different guys that can get you 12 to 18. Maybe somebody gets 20 between Mikal Bridges and Cameron Johnson and Cameron Payne and Chris Paul and DeAndre Ayton. You have all these guys. The issue is when you take the lead dog out, and it's what we saw in the second half when he came out of that game, is who is going to score the ball for the Suns in crunch time. Is it going to be Chris Paul? It was in game 1, but it wasn't in game 2. And their offense turns into, like, you have to have guys who can create shots in the playoffs for themselves. Chris Paul definitely can. DeAndre Ayton, he's not creating his own shot. Mikal Bridges is not creating his own shot. Cam Johnson isn't really creating his own shot. So then you look at who's the next guy who can really go off the dribble, create his own shots. Cam Payne, your backup point guard. So can you put him and Chris Paul on the floor at the same time in crunch time? Defensively, that's not going to match up well against a Pelicans team that likes to go big. So basically, the way I look at it is, like, the Suns are a great team. They were fine. Like, they were fine without Booker. Ben kind of mentioned it in his comment earlier. Like, they were slightly above average. They were 8-6. I am very nervous in playoff basketball if they can't pull away early from teams. If games come down the stretch, do they have the shot making? And compared to the Brandon Ingram, CJ McCollum, and then potentially if they play the Mavs between Luka Doncic and Jalen Brunson, I don't know if the Suns have, like, the let's go one-on-one in a one-possession game, who's going to go to get a basket. I'd probably take a couple of the guys on the other teams over the Suns guys. Obviously, if Devin Booker returns earlier in that second-round series, it's kind of a moot point. But I wouldn't write off the Pelicans stealing another game here, taking one in New Orleans, and this is 2-2 going back to Phoenix. They played very well in game 2, sans the Devin Booker injury. Like, they were in the game when he had 31 in the first half. So I'm very worried about Phoenix, just what they're going to do offensively without him, because we've seen this year they definitely take a dip when he's not in the lineup.
I think you're undervaluing my bad, Ian, but I think that Peter's undervaluing Chris Paul a little bit. I think what you're going to see is you're going to see a lot of screen and roll with Paul and Ayton, and I think that, especially over the last year and a half, 2 years, however you want to define this, Devin Booker, Chris Paul era, you've seen Ayton take a step back offensively because you have two ball dominant guards. But when Ayton gets the opportunity, especially when he's being set up by Chris Paul, he's still able to go out and get you 18, 20, which is going to be exact. Like, they're going to need Ayton to go and be a 20 and 10 guy while Booker's out. And I think that a lot of his 20 points don't even have to be hard points. He won't have to work for them, because as soon as Chris Paul starts taking that screen and doing and snaking around and getting to his elbow jumper, that pocket pass for DeAndre Ayton is going to be open every single time. So I think that Paul, especially as a late game shot maker, which you said we saw in game 1, we saw Chris Paul take over this game. It's a playoff series, things happen, right? Games go up and down, but I'm not going to count out Chris Paul to be, if he needs to be the ball dominant guard who scores in the fourth quarter. I have no doubt in my mind that Chris Paul can go one-on-one with CJ McCollum in a shot making battle.
That's fair. I just wonder, like, is it going to be CJ McCollum, or are they just going to put Herb Jones on Chris Paul? Because that's who Devin Booker was drawing every time. Now it's like, okay, do we have to put Herb Jones on Mikal Bridges, or do you just put him on Chris Paul and say if Mikal Bridges is going to beat us, he's going to beat us? Which is what I mean. Willie Green has been extremely underrated as a coach in this play-in and then into the playoffs. I think he's done a fantastic job. So the thing that scares me about 8-2, and this just another matchup thing, the Pelicans are playing two bigs right now in their starting lineup, and even in some of their closing lineups, they're playing Jackson Hayes and Jonas Valanciunas at the same time. So, like, you have the rim protection there where, like, yes, Chris Paul is a mastermind in the pick and roll, but I just don't think this is like an easy, like, the Suns walk away and win games. Like, they're going to need somebody to step up in every game. They're going to need a big Cam Johnson game. They're going to need a big Mikal Bridges game. And, like, in the regular season, you can get away with that. I don't know about in the playoffs as much.
Let me just jump in for a quick second then. So I'll bring up the updated series odds, which we haven't mentioned yet. Suns at WinBet now -310 favorite. Pelicans +250 underdogs with the series tied at 1. So, Peter, do the Pelicans have value? Because you seem to think that they might not necessarily be an easy out anymore.
I would take a shot on them at this point. I mean, it's just after they won game 2, like before we even knew the Booker timeline, I think it was worth taking a shot. Like if you I watched that whole game and like Brandon Ingram was dominant, and like you look at the Pelicans games they played this year, and like when Brandon Ingram and CJ McCollum are both playing well, they're a tough out. Like they have 2 elite shot makers, and defensively they have been solid. They've been a top 10 defense over the last like 2 months of the season. So it's like when you put them, like I don't love the Jackson Hayes fit in terms of like a long-term playoff team, like that you can't get away with playing 2 bigs against some of these teams. But without Devin Booker on the floor, you can get away with it and say, hey, we're going to make somebody other than Chris Paul or DeAndre Ayton beat us. And like they might. I'm not saying the Suns are incapable of doing that. They've done it this year at times. But like I would – if you're telling me I can get those odds and like the Suns are having to bank on like Cam Johnson and Mikal Bridges having like big game after big game after big game, it's worth a shot, especially with the series back in New Orleans.
What if Zion comes back?
Stop it.
Oh, that's a whole nother can of worms. But this is part of the reason why before the playoffs I took the Clippers in a future. I said if somebody can beat the Suns, like there's a path to get there. Like, and it's kind of coming to fruition. I just had the wrong team.
But you don't think that it's a little wild that like that you have this team? I understand how valuable Devin Booker is, but to say I think this team is going to win it all, right? A team that went, that won all the games that it did, and now they can't get past an 8 seed in the first round.
They won a lot of those games with Devin Booker though. They were 8-6 without him.
Moving forward, right? If they get past the series, are you worried?
Yeah, if they don't have Devin Booker, yeah, I'm worried. If they have Devin Booker, I don't care. Like he's the best player on the team. We can say all we want about Chris Paul. Devin Booker's the best player on the team. So like, you take the best player off of any team, it's a concern. I mean, if you took Giannis off the Bucks, if you took Tatum off the Suns, like you take anybody off, it's a huge concern. I think, like. I just think this Pelicans team is getting a little bit slept on. They won game 2. Like, it wasn't like Devin Booker didn't play at all. He scored 31 points in the first half, and the Pelicans had control the entire second half. So, to me, like, I don't think they're a pushover.
And now they go to their home court.
Yeah, exactly. Now they're at home. Like, I don't think this is like a cut and dry. The Suns, they're just the Suns. Like, if they had gone, like, if they had a record like the Grizzlies have without Ja Morant this year, I'd be like, okay, yeah, they'll figure it out. They'll be fine. Like, they're a slightly above 500 team without Devin Booker. Their offense is not close to the same, and that was what held them back in game 2. It worries me going forward.
I think they would be just fine.
Never going to happen, but Pelicans, if anyone's curious, 75-1 to win the Western Conference. You sprinkling on that, Pete, or no?
No, I wouldn't. Unless Zion came back and some crazy stuff happened and the Warriors got knocked out, then it would be like, oh, maybe. But it's not happening. You need a lot of things to happen for that.
Let me ask you guys this, because I know you did a video, when was it, earlier this week or late last week when you picked your picks for the NBA Finals. Yeah. I will give you a chance to revise those picks. Donovan, I'll start with you because it doesn't sound like you want to revise them. It sounds like you're sticking, I believe you said, with the Warriors and the Bucks. Are you still sticking with that as your NBA Finals?
I'm not leaving the bandwagon. I'm not leaving it. It's going to be the Milwaukee Bucks and the Golden State Warriors in the NBA Finals, and I'm still picking the Bucks to win. Now, I will say one thing. That if there was going to be another champion, it is obviously going to be the Golden State
Toronto
Warriors.
Raptors. Oh.
Stop it. They are about to get swept. The Warriors are dangerous and they are nice and they are healthy. The Splash Brothers plus Jordan Poole are lethal, and the Warriors are here. And so if there's going to be a team that upsets my pick, it is going to be the other team that they play. There's not going to be any surprise. I know everything, and the Warriors are going to come in, and that's it. But if we're talking about am I staying, I'm still staying with the Bucks to win the championship.
Shout out former Wolverine Jordan Poole. Peter, Same question to you. I think you had a rematch, right? Bucks Suns as your NBA Finals pick. If I give you a chance to revise that and change it, will you, or are you sticking with it?
Yeah, I would change it. If everybody was healthy, I would stick with it. But Middleton being out for possibly the rest of the next 2 series, and Devin Booker potentially same way. Golden State's going to make it out of the West if they stay healthy. It really comes out like the playoffs are a marathon in the NBA. It's 2 months. Like it's a long time. You have to stay healthy. Golden State's healthy right now, and they look like the best team when healthy. So I would say Golden State makes it out of the West at this point, and I'm starting to come around on Miami possibly making out of the East. I think Boston, though, might be the best team in the East because Robert Williams comes back in that defense. I just hate their road, and I hate where their odds are, so I wouldn't bet them. I think they might be the best team. If I was going to bet, I'd take Miami. I don't really know who the Warriors would face, but right now, if you told me I had to pick my finals pick, I would take the Warriors. The health thing, it's killer. I have a future on the Warriors, the Suns, and the Bucks, and it's just like you take those guys off those teams, it's just not the same team anymore.
So if you have a Heat Warriors final, who wins?
Warriors. I would say the Warriors win. But again, it's going to come down to health. That's what the NBA playoffs are, unfortunately. Like it happened to the Clippers last year. I think the Clippers would have made the finals if Kawhi doesn't get hurt. It's just the way the ball rolls. It's kind of crazy with the NBA. It's just a long, long playoffs.
Any reaction that Donovan Peter has now changed both of his picks? Is he a coward for doing that? Is it the right call? What's your reaction?
Ye of little faith. This man, Peter.
Did he just pull a Bible quote out on you right now?
Yes, sir. I'm actually shocked. I thought that you would stick with at least one of those picks. We've talked a lot about how excited we are to watch the Warriors go through this playoff run, because for the first time in a long time, they're healthy and they're firing on all cylinders. And you have this trio of Steph, Clay, and Dre. And now, and Peter says that Jordan Poole is the best third option that the Warriors have had since Kevin Durant, or I guess outside of Kevin Durant.
Outside of Kevin Durant.
Yeah, outside of Kevin Durant, he's putting him above Harrison Barnes, which I agree with. It's still very interesting to see him change both of them. Not one, but both. And they haven't even played the games on the road. We haven't even gotten to game 3, and now Peter's entire finals matchup is switched up. I'm
invested in the Bucks Suns matchup, so there's nothing I can do. I'm just if you ask me right now, and which is what we're doing, who I think is making the NBA finals, I just don't know how you can say the Suns or the Bucks. Either one of them they are missing either their best player or their second best player for guaranteed the rest of this series and most likely the rest of the next series. I just don't know how you could it's too risky to put a future on unless you're Giannis is just the greatest player ever. It's way too risky. I don't think you can do it. It's too far because now those teams are one more injury away from you're playing a 6-man rotation. It's just not for me right now. If you told me right now, I'm taking the Warriors.
But you were talking about maybe sprinkling on the Suns to win the series. On the Pelicans to win the series.
That's what I'm saying.
That's crazy.
They don't have Devin Booker.
If you're the number one,
the odds are crazy, dude. I can't believe they haven't moved more without Devin Booker.
If they haven't, because they are a good system. You have Monty Williams, who is a great coach. You have one of the premier point guards in the league. You still have DeAndre Ayton. You have what many people. Oh no, he was actually a finalist. You have Mikal Bridges, right? And the same thing that we saw last year. It's the same Suns. They always have somebody stepping up. And in game 2, Cam Johnson was hitting big threes. If you look at the first half, right, where you talk about how the Pelicans were still up. That box score, you have Booker and he goes for 31 points. Jay Crowder is 1 for 7, which he's going to give you a couple nights, but you know that Jay Crowder is going to come back. And probably in game 3, Jay Crowder is going to start the game all 5 for 5, right? Jay Crowder went 0 for 4 from 3 in the first half. Chris Paul, 1 for 5 from the field. You have all these guys that have a higher ceiling, and I know Chris Paul can get there.
How high is that? How high is Jay Crowder's ceiling? See, this is what I'm saying.
5 for 5. Jay Crowder on a lot of occasions, he's going to give you that occasional stinker, but listen. Jay Crowder he's not always there when you call, but he is always on time. And he will show up. He will show up when you need him to, and he's due for one. And I know it's weird to put the faith on just oh, he's due for one. But Jay Crowder is that kind of guy. His stat line is that kind of guy. And to say that Chris Paul, with the supporting cast that he has, cannot beat the New Orleans Pelicans in the first round, that's kind of wild to me. And it's kind of
I watched Chris Paul
crazy.
lose with a lot better supporting cast in the first round before.
It's kind of crazy though. A better supporting cast?
Any of those Lob City teams, any single one of them, without Devin Booker, might be better than the supporting cast of these Suns teams right now. Like I think you were underrating how good Devin Booker is. Devin Booker is averaging 30 a game. Like he is their best player.
I'm not saying he's not nice. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is I have more faith in the Suns' infrastructure that they can get 3 more wins against this team. If they can't get 3 more wins against the Pelicans, they're going to have to make a lot of decisions in the offseason because clearly this isn't working.
I agree with you.
Or clearly it can't work.
That's why I'm saying I think it's worth like a sprinkle on it just because like there is the question, can they get 3 more wins? Like that's not a question. They're going to do it. It is not that cut and dry. If it was that cut and dry, they would have won game 2 without Devin Booker when he still scored 31 points in the game. Now they're going to have 0 points from Devin Booker. I wonder where the rest of those points are going to come from because Jay Crowder's put up back-to-back stinkers to open the series. Like you're going to need good Cam Johnson and good Mikal Bridges every single night. I don't think it's like a lock that it's going to happen. That's why I think it's worth the sprinkle because it's just not – it's 1-1 and they have home court now. So we'll see.
Devin Booker, the half that Devin Booker had in the first half, Brandon Ingram's second half was insane. Brandon Ingram second half stats right here: 9 for 13 from the field, 3 for 3 from 3, 26 points. I'm Brandon Ingram. He's a good player. He's very nice. He's not doing that every second half. That's not him on a consistent basis. And so if you're asking me to bet against Brandon Ingram scoring 26 and basically shooting 70% from the field, yeah, I'm going to do that. And I'm going to bet against that, and I'm going to take Chris Paul.
He doesn't have to do that, though. He had to do that because Devin Booker dropped. He had to do that because Devin Booker dropped 31 in the first half. If Devin Booker doesn't score 31, where are they getting the 31 from? That's what I'm saying.
But you're saying that they were still up.
They were losing even though Devin Booker had 31. Like, that's crazy. That's where I'm saying this isn't like a cut and dry Suns have this series. It is not to me. This is not a walk in the park.
Lock it up.
And on that note, we're going to wrap things up because we're past our time now. It's very clear Peter and Donovan have differing opinions on this one. Quote of the show, ye of little faith. I think that kind of sums up the difference in your guys' opinions. Peter has completely changed his NBA Finals picks. Donovan's sticking with his. That's it. Thank you for tuning in. We'll talk to you soon this weekend. Don't forget Bet and Breakfast at 11 a.m. Eastern, both on Saturday and Sunday. Tune in for that. A lot more NBA playoff action and all that good stuff. And, of course, on Saturday, I'll be talking with Reed, who are his Nets going to be done by then? Do they play tomorrow? Oh, no, they
play Saturday.
2 games done. So, we'll see. We'll see how Reed's feeling on Saturday morning. So thanks, everyone, for tuning in. If you're watching on YouTube, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. We will talk to you next time. And NHL playoffs in a couple weeks. Very excited for that. Talk to you soon.